As I prepared for today and wrote this sermon, I couldn't help but think about the events of Tuesday and the election. I mean, they were lined up outside my office here for as long as the polls were open. And when it was all done, one side is extremely happy and giddy, and the other side is decidedly low. And the general population is experiencing this. If the general population is experiencing this, and I don't think I've ever seen a population at such diverse points in their emotions, then imagine what it's like for the candidates. You know, where one person wins and they have to be exuberant and excited, and the other person on the other side, one cannot even imagine how low. Within the last several months, I watched a documentary. It was very fascinating to me. I watched a documentary on CNN, and they interviewed all the people who'd run for president since 1984 and lost. And, they shared all their experience and the big investment of themselves, their time and energy, and what it takes in this country. And they were all very different, except for one thing. They said, you never get over it. You never get over losing. And as I thought about that, it made me think about my own times, my own feelings, perhaps yours, where we have events or circumstances in our lives that make us feel overwhelmed. You know, sometimes they're of our own creation, sometimes they just happen, but we literally feel engulfed and swamped and sometimes suffocated by them. And they are so large and hit us so strongly internally that even when we're among hundreds of people or even 10 people that are our friends, we feel alone. We feel isolated and separated and by ourselves. This is where the woman in our scripture lesson this morning found herself. She was a widow, and now she had lost her only son, which is hard enough to lose someone you love, to lose someone you have parented a child with, to lose someone that you've built a life with. That's hard enough. Then to lose a child. But to compound that, in that day and in that age, a woman alone with no man to provide and no man to be protected by really was alone. Ostracized, isolated, pushed outside. You know, that's why they had those rules or laws that if you lost your spouse, your brother might marry you, somebody to take care of you, because you were no one unless you were attached to someone else. It's still kind of that way today. Let's not kid ourselves. As Sue said, a lot of times for women or for the spouse, they are kind of isolated in so many respects. And it happens for men too, but more often probably for women. So these two examples that I offer you remind us of what it's like to experience loss. Loss of job, loss of relationship, loss of life, loss of a dream. You know, that can hit us too. Sometimes in life we've planned our whole life to be like this, and then when we get there, it's not the way we thought it would be. And we feel alone. In fact, in some days, it feels like us against the world. That's how tough it can be as the internal chains bind us. So my thought or my question today as we look at this subject of being isolated, to being alone, of feeling that way, whether it's literal or figurative, emotional, physical, or spiritual, is what do we do? How do we get out of it? What is our responsibility as individuals and as people or individuals around folks going through this? What do we do as a church? And I have several suggestions. And the first one, I think, is imperative for us to remember. It's imperative. And that is that when we get in that position and we feel alone, we have to remember that feelings are not right or wrong. Feelings are just feelings. You understand me? Feelings are just feelings, and no one has the right to tell you you shouldn't feel that way. Because that's how you feel. You know? They don't walk in your shoes. They don't know what it's like, and most of us struggle enough, because what that does when we say, oh, you should get over it, or you should be in a different place by now, what that does is it compounds our isolation with guilt. And then we feel guilty that we don't feel better. We feel guilty that things aren't going right. And let's be honest, most of us struggle with enough guilt as it is. I mean, we just do, because there's always somebody telling us we should be better, we should be different, we should look different, all these kinds of things. So we all struggle with that enough. So when we're already there, we don't need somebody to add to that. What we need is someone to just be with us in that. We don't need somebody to judge us. We don't need somebody to fix us. We need someone who says, I understand. That's what we need. That's what the Scriptures tell us. The one promise God makes again and again and again is not that I'll fix it, not that I'll take care of it, not that you don't have to worry about things. God says again and again and again, I will be with you. You don't have to be alone. God says that to Moses on Sinai. God says that in the 23rd Psalm. Jesus says that at the end of his ministry, I will be with you even unto the ends of the earth. Being with each other is critical when we're there, that we have someone who will simply walk with us. Which brings me to my second point, and that is that we need to rethink what it means to be connected, to be in relationship with other people. I think we struggle with this mightily in this day and age. And building relationships is important. They don't just happen. You have to invest yourself. They take time. They take energy. They are risky. But we think that when we need them, they'll just be there. And that's kind of like saying, well, I'm going to learn to swim at the moment I start to drown. You can't. It's too late. It won't happen. And the investment we make in others directly correlates to the investment others will make in us. And of course, we can invest in other people and find out it doesn't work, that we really don't have that much in common, that they really aren't a friend, and it's time to move on. Or as the poet Maya Angelou said, never make someone a priority when all you are to them is an option. We must rethink what it means to be in relationship with others. I think there's a particular struggle in this age with virtual reality and the internet, where we mistake texting and emailing, which are always misinterpreted, or virtual friends. We mistake that for the face-to-face connectedness that we need. I fear that we have a whole generation that has not and is not learning what it means to be in relationship. When they started the internet, Facebook, what they thought would happen in Facebook was that we would build these global communities, which happened. But what they have also discovered is that in building those communities and those relationships that go around the world, when you say something I don't like, all I got to do is hit a button and you're gone. Relationships don't work that way. So we've built communities where everybody thinks alike, and that's not really the real world. I mean, that's how terrorism is spread to the degree that it has. So people think they have friends when they probably do not. And I would tell you that it's the one thing more and more people crave. They crave it. So the effort of coming, joining, reaching out to others before challenging events strike us, loss happens to us. It's not only important, it is life-saving. You have to invest yourself to get an investment back in yourself. Which brings me to my final thought, and that is, as a church, we are challenged to be a place where people can make those connections. That is what the church, if you read the letters of the Apostle Paul, is really charged with doing. To bring people together that are disparate, that are different, that have different political views, that have different spiritual views, that have different economic situations or educational levels. Paul says that again and again and again. He says the church is a colony of God in the new world. The church is a new creation within the old creation. We are charged to build community, to rise up above the human things that separate us, seeking the divine things that can unite us. You know, every church, and that means when you come to churches, when you look around at the people next to you, it's not merely about saying, "Hi, I'm Keith, welcome to church," and then sitting down. It's about really introducing yourself. It's about inviting others to events and programs. It's about saying, "I will pick you up." It's about saying, "How about having coffee with us?" It is that extra effort. For years, the statistic says that when someone visits a church, if they don't make 4 or 5 strong connections in the next 6 months, they're gone. And I would tell you it's probably quicker these days, because when you go to the internet, did you know that when you Google through the internet and hit a page, if the page doesn't catch your attention in 3 seconds, you're gone. So that's the world we live in, and we have to reach out. Every church says they're friendly. I've interviewed at plenty of them, and you say, "Well, tell me about our church," and they always say, "Well, we're a friendly congregation." But as Lyle Staller said, that's because everybody who thought you weren't friendly left. You'll never forget that the next time somebody says to you, "We're a friendly church." I avoid that, by the way, for that very same reason. But our purpose, listen to me now, our purpose for welcoming people is not and never should be about numbers or anything else. It is fundamentally about soul-to-soul connections. To reach out and say, we want to be a community that reaches deep within you in love. That we want to give sustenance, we want to help you grow deep roots, that your life bears good fruits. Because aloneness is not merely physical, it is not necessarily just emotional. Aloneness can be spiritual. We are mind, body, and soul, are we not? And any relationship that lasts, whether it's a family, whether it's a marriage, whether it's anything, that becomes the ultimate thing that keeps people together. You can get married, anybody can get married and have a marriage contract, but that doesn't mean you have a marriage. Because the relationship that works and strengthens and nurtures and forgives and challenges and encourages is an intertwining of our spirits. And the one thing that the church offers, or should offer, that no other institution offers is that. I think parents make a huge mistake, and our kids participate in all kinds of sports, but parents make a huge mistake thinking that their kids are learning how to live in relationship with other kids when they play sports with them. They forget that every time they step on the hockey rink or the soccer field, those people they think are friends are their competitors. So what they learn is, you're my competitor. Otherwise, you might play and I won't. And, friends, that's not what friendship's about. Friendship's about, you're a loser, and I still love you. Were you ever picked last in elementary school when you got to pick teams? Anybody want to admit that? They were picked last? Yeah, it stinks, doesn't it? Yeah, I guess I'll have to take Haemmelmann. You see? Our purpose is to help people. Aloneness is not just physical, emotional, but also spiritual. People are united in a common cause, in a higher purpose, greater ideals, all of which help us to build trust. And when we trust, we open up. You don't build a relationship without trust. But when you trust someone, that's when the cloud dissipates, the aloneness goes away, and we are raised, not literally from death, but we are raised from a worse kind of death, living death. You know, where you walk around and you look pretty good, but you're just dead inside. I came across a quote I thought was very good. It said, "Pray that your loneliness may spur you into finding something to live for, and more importantly, something great enough to die for." You got to push yourself. We have to welcome others. We have to find our commonality in the Spirit of God. This is what Jesus did for the woman who had lost her husband and then lost her son. Did you notice in the text, he didn't wait for her to come to him. He says she's in a bad place. And he goes to her and he says, "Can I help you? I'd like to help you." And when he does, it's not just her life, excuse me, it's not just her son's life that is resurrected. It's her life too. It's her life. Do you ever notice how many times when Jesus heals somebody, he touches them? He touches them. That's what it's all about. So today, I have something for you, and Guillermo's going to help me. He doesn't know that, but he is, because he's my friend. One of the things that we have and we do with others is you want to just give it to them? I have here tea bags. I have here tea bags. I want you to take one of these and take it home, put it on your refrigerator, put it on the counter, and I want this to remind you this week to connect with somebody, because when you have tea with someone or you have coffee with someone, that's what you do. And this week, our challenge is to really work on your connection.